Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the May 11th NCCC meeting. Before we start the meeting, though, we have a formalism we have to get out of the way, which is we're required to do one public board meeting a year. It's required by the bylaws, and it's supposed to be the first meeting after the election. We just had an election, and it has to precede the official meeting. So we'll do that. After that, we'll do our usual Zoom introductions. Then I have a few very short remarks, and then we'll vote in a couple of new members. And then Andy, AE6Y, will give our brand new VPCC will give the report. Then Bob, K3EST, will delve into CQ WPX CW, which is coming up and is a focus contest. Then Jim is going to give a short presentation on an engineering tip of the month, K9YC. And finally, our feature presentation, contest logging accuracy by Doug Grant, K1DG. So the public board meeting, I call the meeting to order. Are there any resolutions or business?
Move to adjourn.
I hear a move to adjourn. I accept the motion, and the public meeting is closed. Thank you. Okay, now these introductions, in our in-person meetings, we pass around the microphone and everyone says his name and call sign, but that's not really feasible in Zoom. So we've gotten used to just kind of having a pile up with no acknowledgement. But in order to thin it out a little bit, I've used different ways to not have everybody call at once. So seeing how WPX is coming up, I thought I'd use prefixes. So in my little notation here, the pound sign is a number, the X is a letter, and let's start out. So anybody with A, any call sign starting with A?
Alpha Echo 6 Juliet Victor.
Alpha Japan 6
Yokohama.
Alpha Japan 6 Victor.
Alpha Echo 6 Yankee.
Alpha Japan 6 Tango from Tennessee.
Whoa, all right.
Okay, thanks. Now how about the K followed by a number?
NCCC.
Kilo 6 Kilo Mike.
Kilo
Lima.
2 Kilo Whiskey.
Kilo 6 Bravo Lima.
All right.
Kilo 6 Sugar Tango.
K9 Yankee Charlie.
Radio November.
K9 Yankee Charlie.
All right, now KA through KM.
Kilo Alpha 6 Bravo India Mike.
KI60Y.
Kilo Golf 7 Quebec X-Ray Echo.
Kilo Echo 8 Fox Tango.
KK6 Papa X-Ray Tango.
Okay, now KN through KZ. Nobody. I guess those are rare prefixes. Okay, N, anything.
November 6 Tango Victor.
Norway 6.
November 0 Kilo Quebec.
November 6 X-ray.
November 6 Foxtrot Papa.
November 6 Echo Echo permanently in New Jersey now.
And 7 Mike Hotel.
Okay, now let's see, NA through NZ.
Norway Delta 2 Tango.
Norway Alpha 6 Oscar.
And W followed by a number.
Whiskey 6 Norway Lima.
Whiskey 9 Kilo Norway.
Whiskey 6
Whiskey
India
6
Foxtrot.
Lima Delta.
Whiskey 6 Foxtrot Alpha. Whiskey 6 Foxtrot Alpha.
Whiskey 6 Florida Bravo.
Whiskey 6 Delta Mike Whiskey.
Whiskey 6 Sugar Charlie.
Okay, WA through WM.
Whiskey Alpha 2, Foxtrot, Hotel, Foxtrot.
Whiskey Echo 6 Zulu.
Whiskey Delta 6 Tango. Okay, WN through WZ.
Whiskey Oscar 6 Whiskey.
Okay, and any DX or anything else?
M6RO, sorry I'm late.
Okay, great. Well, welcome everybody. Moving right along here. So I want to welcome the new officers and board members. We've got Andy, I already mentioned him, and Stefan, AF6SA, treasurer, and Roberto, K6KM, new to the board of directors. We're going to try a little bit, something a little bit different. Came up in the board meetings a few months ago. An idea of sort of having, instead of just one big presentation, we'll have some short presentations followed by a big presentation. So we're going to have something like a contest of the month. This month, of course, it's a focus contest, so it's WPX, but maybe we'll explore some lesser known contests in coming months. And then that'll be followed by an engineering tip of the month that's being curated by Jim. And then followed by whatever the feature presentation is, or maybe there'll be several. So you can see how you like it. And everything is changeable. Moving along, we got two new members, WB6POT, Peter Woodmansey. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Now, Peter, some of you may remember him. He was in 1979, I think he was a member of the club. And he said he used to drive up to meetings in Oakland. So here's what I know about him. He's an extra class operator, licensed in 76. First call was WN6POT. He was nominated by me and K6KM and NA60. His station consists of a Flex 6600 and Yagis for 6, 10, 12, 15, 17, 20, and 40. Dipoles for 30, 60, and 80. He's half CW, half phone. And his contest experience and awards. Well, let me just say how I found him was I was looking through the sweepstakes results, and he won a Pacific area plaque. So I contacted him. His experience, he lists 2018 sweepstakes, single op, low power, first place Sacramento Valley section, 2018 CQP. I'm having a little trouble parsing this. Sorry, let me try again. Yeah, you use some semicolons, but anyway, 2018 CQP, single op, low power, first place Placer County, 2019 CQP, single op, low power, first place Placer County, 2020 CQP, single op, low power, second place Placer County. So winning a lot of things, however you parse it. His favorite contests are CQP and sweepstakes. And other comments he wrote, at the end of last year, I decided to get back into CW. I've been enrolled in CW Ops since September of last year, now finishing up the advanced class, looking forward to dipping my toes into CW contesting during this year's CQP. Prior years of contesting were SSB. And I asked him if he wanted to get on for WPX, and he said yes. So we got another log. Okay, now the next person is W6TST, Timothy Takeuchi. Timothy, let's see, he's an amateur extra. He's been licensed for 46 years. His original calls, or earlier calls, were WN6HFR and WD6DPP. He was nominated by Gary and by me and by Roberto. He's 5% CW, 20% phone, and 80% other. His station, he says he has a home station and a portable station. His home station is or maybe it's both of them, IC 7300. He uses an Alpha Delta DXCC I think it's a fan dipole at home and a buddy pole for his portable use. And his contest experience and awards, he lists the Cal QSO Party, Field Day, and Winter Field Day. And his favorite contest is California QSO Party. An excellent choice. So those are our two nominees. And normally we have them go out of the room and we take a vote, but that's not feasible really. So let's just say anybody who objects to either of these, speak up now. And hearing nothing, where's my mouse? Congratulations and welcome to the club. And now I'm going to turn it over to Andy at E6Y.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Bill, are you going to put my slides up or am I supposed to do this now?
I'll put your slides up and I'll even advance them for you.
You
Just
will. That's extraordinarily affable of you. Okay.
we try to help everybody out here. Okay, so just give me just a second.
Okay. Well, let me get started anyway. I'm a new officer here. Oh, there we go. And this is the third time I've been the contest chairman. Actually, I did it in the late 90s, and actually the early 90s, shortly after joining the club in 1992. And then in 2002, in fact, that year, to show how some things don't change, we made WPX a focus contest and we set the world club record of 253 million points in 2002. The record's now something above 300 million and no US club has won it in about 10 years or so. But they now separate to US and foreign clubs. But in any event, it's something we may decide to aspire to next year because WPX is a focus contest this year. I assume we're going to make it one next year. I don't really want to discuss focus contests tonight. What I really wanted to do was sort of talk about how NCCC has been doing lately. And this has been actually sort of instigated, if you will, by receiving CQ Magazine and NCJ and looking at various contest reports and seeing that we've really done very well the last bunch of contest years. I kind of want to give a shout out to the people who've been in these contests. Now I know a lot of the people at this meeting are very serious contesters themselves. Some may not be, but I think that we've sort of in recent years gotten away from sort of clapping ourselves in the back or clapping our hands, patting ourselves on the back and pointing out when we've done a good job as a club or as individuals. And I view my job as the contest chairman to kind of inject some enthusiasm and cheerleading and boosterism. And so that's what I'm going to be trying to do. And I'm trying to start doing that tonight, as a matter of fact. In the future, we'll talk more about specific contests and we will also, I will be looking to appoint people to be the contest chairman or chairwomen and contest floggers, kind of what W6RGG does traditionally for Sprint CW, and other people have done it for other contests, because I think we need that constant attention in order to keep going. So I wanted to give a report on these contests, which all have come up in the last 7 months or so, and all of which are COVID-related contests in a way. Bill? So the first one, CQ Worldwide RIDI, they always say you can't win CQ Worldwide from the West Coast, and Bill figured out a way to do it. He did it by going remote to ZF1A, and not only did he win it, but he won it quite convincingly. And then if you look at those first places, they're really quite remarkable. In the US, Jeff WK6I went to Tom Station, Nevada, won the US. K6KM was the first place US rookie, and you're going to see that all coming up again, actually. First place US 20 meters was K6GHA. Multi N6WM, and Ed came in third. Ed's here, I saw him earlier, came in third in the US Classic H high power. So we've done extraordinarily well in that RIDI contest. Now the two big CQ world, the bigger ones obviously are the classic ones, sideband and CW. Sideband was October 20th, and there's K6GHA again as the first place on 20 meters. US rookie K6KM again. Bob K3EST was the multi. I assume that's an N6RO multi, K3EST.
That's right.
Okay. They came in fourth in the US. I came in first in the classic in the world. And there's a story there I'm not going to go into at great length now, but it was on log checking. And it kind of relates to Doug's talk tonight. In fact, Doug came in second in the US in the classic category. So he's a classic guy. It's a great category for kind of older people because it's 24 hours, one radio, no internet. It's very straightforward. It's just, there's some strategy to picking off times. There's obviously some strategy to not making too many mistakes because I lost no mults on log checking. If I had lost one mult, I would have come in second to Papa 3 X-ray, P3X. His reported score on 3830 was 70,000 points ahead of mine, but he lost a little bit more, substantially more than I did on log checking. And that's how I eked out this very, very narrow victory, which kind of is pure luck in that regard, I have to say, unfortunately. But in any event, CW contest is the biggest one of the year. K6KM again was the first place US rookie, and this time he was the third place world. Roberto, congratulations. You're getting mentioned a lot here. Perennial QRP or W6JTI came in second in the US. In zone 3, K6XX and N6TV won. Where was XX operating from for that contest? Do we know?
I think it was at his home station.
From my trailer. I had a trailer set up at the base of the tower.
I see. I didn't see you there, Bob. Sorry. Okay, very good. I mean, Bob has traditionally won K3, won zone 3, or certainly won the high US, the high Northern California Contest Club Zone 3 award. And then the multi again, N6WM at, I assume again at N6RO. So these are all these are all from the highlight reel of the contest. These are not defined by going deep into the results. These are up front because they're very good results. So that's it for CQ Worldwide. It's of course, a great contest. People always say you can't win it from the West Coast, but you can have a lot of fun from the West Coast. And the RIDI contest clearly is more competitive because mults include US states now for that contest, not just European mults. So next contest, Sprint RTTY, also in October. And look at that, there's K6MR. He lost by 1 Q. If he'd had one more Q, he would have won the contest. Dave came in right behind him in third place, and not too far back was Ed, AJ6V. Our team, K6MR, WD6T, AJ6V, W6SX, W0YK came in second. Did someone have a comment? Am I overriding someone? No. We had 9 team operators in this contest. This contest is not as well attended as the CW version, but I gather it's coming up in the world, and obviously NCCC is doing very well. And K6MR just almost won the whole thing. So that's a very nice result. And I didn't mention it, but the article was written by W0YK, so his name's on it too. And in fact, the CQ Worldwide article was written by him and Chris N6WM. So then we come to the NAQPs. These are reported in the NCJ. I don't know about you folks, but I think these are some of my favorite contests. They're just wonderful. They're low power, which really helps the overall situation, I think. Tom ND2T, maybe that wouldn't work for your Brooklyn station, but it works for everybody else, I have to say.
It was Ira's station, not all twos are the same.
There you go. It's 10 hours for single ops out of 12, or 12 hours for a multi-2. It's a nice contest in addition because your name is part of the exchange. And so on phone particularly, it becomes a very friendly contest where people are greeting each other by name and saying hello. And it's just, I don't know, I find it a very congenial contest. We didn't do terribly well in NAQP CW. It's very interesting. As I mentioned here, of the top 20 scores in California, 11 were club members, but our top team finished 14th. That's actually not too bad out of 136, but it's not where we usually are. And I think that, I don't know if anyone else wants to comment, maybe N6TV on this, but this seems to be becoming a 2B SIQ contest. And the winner got something over 1,900 Qs, which is astonishing. Do you have any thoughts on that, Bob? Am I correct that that's where it's going?
Yes, and I missed it.
It's an interesting, it's a good contest for that approach, probably because the low power is helpful. The rates are not that high. It's not like CQ Worldwide. You know, in CQ Worldwide CW last fall, the two guys who were trying to win, N6MJ and KL9A, they both had about 11,000 contacts on CW. This is mind-boggling. That's, if you think about it, 200 contacts an hour for 48 hours would be 9,600. This is something like 230 contacts an hour for 48 hours, running two pile-ups simultaneously on two bands. Is there anyone here who is actively trying to do 2B SIQ at this point? Bill, you are. How are you coming along? Are you doing it for 48 hours? Those rates?
No, I'm not. I'm just trying to keep track of some of these other guys, or keep up with some of these other guys. It's really hard.
Yeah.
For even an hour.
How do they keep the concentration? Because literally, according to the magazine, that TI7W and ZF1A, the two guys, had contacts in every hour of the 48 hours.
It's very carefully controlled diets and very carefully controlled. I mean, a lot of this is physical fitness, to be honest. I mean, you know, Chris is a weightlifter. He does that continuously. He, you know, posts a whole bunch about that. You know, MJ has been, you know, trying to catch up with that, but you know, they're just used to never leaving the chair for 48 hours. They practice so much at a higher rate, you know, compared to the actual contest. So these guys are regularly hitting rough C numbers of 70+ words a minute. So what they're almost doing is about half that during the actual contest. So, you know, their brain is sort of half loaded in compared to, you know, what they're normally doing. And they start in July, and that's, you know, when they're actually working up to the contest to start practicing every day in Morse Runner and DX Log and Rusty.
Right.
You have to be real committed to do that.
Okay, let's go on to the next contest, which is sideband. NAQP sideband, again, great result from Rich, N6KT. Our top team came in 4th place, and the multi-2. N6RO, I shortchanged you, Ken, there. You actually were 4th. I'm sorry, that's a carryover from another slide. Okay, one more contest only. That's Sprint CW. And there, Trey at Dave and Barb's station won it. Or excuse me, would have won it if he hadn't lost 8 QSOs in log checking. He lost 8, and if he had lost 4, he would have won the contest. It was that close. TV Bob was also in the top 5, and the good news was our team set a new record. The Sprint went from 10-person teams to 5-person teams, as you probably all know, some years ago, and this is a 5-person record, which was probably helped by a little more activity from COVID, but nonetheless, it is the new record to shoot at. So that's the end of my cheerleading. I have only one more slide, which is to introduce Bob K3EST, who knows all about this stuff. But WPX CW is coming up in 2.5 weeks. By the way, I will be on Aruba at Papa 49 Yankee, so please look for me. Crivelli will be there, I think, as P44W, and John Bain, KK9A, will probably be P40 Alpha. So we'd be pleased if you work us all. It's a great contest. You can have a lot of fun from the West Coast. There are a zillion categories you can get into. So with that, I want to encourage everybody to go for it with WPX CW, and let me turn it over to Bob.
Thanks, Andy. Yes, the WPX CW is a fun contest for sure. So this little talk is mostly aimed at members who can put in some time into operating in the WPX, but not full time. Hopefully the charts we present here will help you maximize your effort. And those members who put in a full-time effort, you sort of have an idea of what to do anyway, but these charts will help you guide you with some band openings, and hope you also will be able to guide you with what times to take off. Always remember that there's about 900 prefixes in the United States, more than that actually. And so when it's not hot to DX, always go for W's. Okay, so let's look at the first slide. The WPX is a fun contest, as everybody knows. You can work anybody. The QSOs on 40 with the 160 are 2 points. more than a 2-point value, except for W's, which are 1 point. If you have a good prefix, you can allow yourself to run with a small station. You can choose from many categories that suit your time and interest. And the summer conditions are really quite different than the other parts of the year, especially on 20 meters, as you will see. Europe and JA are on 20 and are mostly in the evenings. And remember, there's also a very much smaller amount of nighttime hours in California to work Europe on the low bands. So you better, if you're going to try to work Europe on 40, make sure you're there at the right time. And as you can see, European sunset over there, sunrise rather, is about 0500. So I've probably worked the average European up until then. Okay, next slide. The beautiful thing about contesting, as everybody knows, is that nobody knows what's going to happen. That's what keeps us coming back more and more. And so the conditions could be fantastic, or they could be normal, or they could be bad. We don't have any idea. So I'm preparing this talk on the basis of they were sort of like the last 2 years, which was sort of okay. And there are 3 major volume areas, as we know, and to work in this contest: the US, JA, and Europe. And Europe is iffy, except for 20 meters. And but Europe has a lot of multipliers. So if you want to try to increase your multiplier, make sure you constantly watch for spots on 40 meters, especially on spots for Europe, especially on 40 meters and 15 meters. Okay, next slide. Well, knowing what the best time to optimize your effort will increase your fun and score. So the following slides have some caveats. The beam heading to Europe is mostly like W1, so you can monitor Europe and W's at the same time. JA and obviously the different beam heading. And so look at the compiled data and get your idea of when to turn your beam and look for JAs. South America, Africa, and Oceania are not really compiled here because you don't work very many of them except for South Americans. And everybody can do that. You know when to do that. So I didn't really compile that. WQSOs are showing on 40, 80 through 20, but not on 15 because the last few years, 15 has been mostly all W's. So if you want to work W's, you know what to do on 15, just point your beam east and call CQ. So the tables are both, the tables which are presented next are compilation of 2 years, 2019, 2020 for NR60 for both 1 hour, for every hour compiled for both years. So knowing when the best time to optimize your effort will increase your funds. I already said that. So next slide, please. Since prefixes only count once, you can only work them once. So make sure you could work as many as you can because they're important. And usually QSOs are tied to prefixes. So the more Qs you make, the more prefixes you work. Usually single ops don't operate on 160 or 10 if it's not open because it's just a waste of time for them because they can do better on 80 and the other bands. So what is considered below are the tables from 40 through 15. And as I said, this is the data, as you can read there, compiled from 2019, 2020. This is to give you an idea of when to be where at what time. So next slide. So the next slide is showing you 80 meters. And you can see here, the numbers refer to the total JAs worked for both years at that time. And you can see what it is. For example, at 0900 is 19 JAs were worked at that time. So you can get, compiling this data allows you to see when the optimum time to be on the band is for when you're trying to choose where to be where at what time. So you can see that the optimum time to be for JAs on 80 is between, say, 10 Zulu and 12 Zulu, or 13 Zulu, 12 Zulu. So that's the best time to be on those bands, at that band to work JAs. And you can see the W's over there, they sort of peak in the evening and they fall off as you'd expect as it gets darker. And there's other information there for you to do that. So the whole idea is for you to be able to look at this and decide where to be when. And the next slide, which is 40, shows you something about 40 meters. 40 meters of all the bands, 40 is the most stable of all the bands. The JAs are always there. You can always work JAs. And except for South American West, all the beam headings are they're also the US or Europe are the same. So in other words, Try to work Europeans when there's something open, but otherwise work W's. Remember, all QSOs on this band are 2 times the point value, and a JA sunset on May 29th is at 0850 Zulu, which is 1:50 in the morning, our time. So the next slide shows you the data for 40 meters. And you can see right there where the JAs peak and where other areas peak. And it's pretty standard that the JAs peak on 40 meters, excuse me, on 40 meters, so say between 0800 and 1200. So if you want to choose what time to be on 40 meters, that's the time to be there. The other areas in Asia, just because the sun moves across over to those areas, essentially BY and further Southeast Asia are come in later. So if you want to peak, get your most out of the bang for the buck on 40 meters for those areas, make sure you look at that and see where to be at the right time for those two areas. The bottom line is that obviously 40 meters is a nighttime band for DX for that. Europeans are pretty well either there or they're not there. And if they're there, make sure you take advantage of that, because you can, as you can see, there's nothing really showing up on the end of Asia until about 0700 or so. So spend your time on 40 meters working W's, and if Europe's then fine. Otherwise, work South Americans and stuff that you usually can hear from there. You can see where the W's peak up there. You can see the W's are listed on the right there, and they are really quite a few W's on the 40 meters at that time. As a matter of fact, 40 is a very good production for W prefixes. So the next slide shows you, next slide. Hello?
Here, which side are you 20 meters or 40?
20 meters, just a
20's
minute.
on the screen.
What's that?
20's on the screen.
Oh, okay. 20 meters, as you can see, has shifted entirely to the night. If you look at Europe, Europe is now really quite good from time the contest starts until about 0500, about 10 o'clock at night, or even later. And then during the day, when you normally think you would work Europe in the morning, it really is there, but not really great. So the really good European opening is in the evening. And you can see the JA opening is now shifted to much later. It usually is in the afternoon on 20, but now it's peaking around 0600 and continues for a couple hours. And they're quite loud at that time. So you can really work quite a few guys if you look at this time, at this chart, and decide when to be there at that time. The W's are on the right there. You can see that they basically during the day again on 20 meters is when they show up. So you really want to spend your time thinking about DX-wise on 20 meters at night, because if you look at that, you can see that there's much more stations on in Europe and the JA and the Middle East and everywhere else at that time as compared during the day. So the next slide will show you, 15 meters. And that's shows so little because there has been so little. So the JAs are right at that time. You can see the JAs are essentially worked all the way up until midnight on 15 meters, but there weren't very many of them because the band really wasn't very good. Just means that this gives you an indication if the band is sort of better than normal, it's going to be open all that time, the JA. So make sure you check that time too, to make sure that you're checking for the JAs at that time. The other areas are much less too. W's aren't calculated, like I mentioned, because essentially the bands were so bad, that's all you could work on 15. Okay, the next slide. Okay, the next slide is a possible band plan for you if you just choose to decide what to do. It includes all the totals, like I mentioned before. If you look at the relative Qs per hour, you can make a decision on where to be. And you can see the caveats, what's not calculated. It's assumed that you can work KL7s, so they're not, we don't even care about them because you know you can work them. Ws are always available on any band. Caribbean, South American are not too hard, so they're not calculated. So if your resources are such that you have multiple beams, make sure you always put one beam on the states because of the 900 prefixes that are available there. And if you don't, make sure you look at the charts and choose what's the best time to be at the states and what's time to be in the DX. And 15 could be open in the morning, or if it's in the Europe, make sure you check this band spots on the packet because it'll tell you when the bands actually will be open. So the next slide will show you a compilation of all the cues on each band at each hour for both years, compiled into one day. So you can see where to be at what time and when to take your times off. So obviously it's at nighttime, it's a big deal. All the way up until about 14 or about 13 Zulu, DX is really rolling in on the low bands on 20 meters also. So you can also see where the accumulated totals over there, you can see and match them. I didn't put the W's on here. You can back look at the other charts and see where the W's are. Anyway, you can see what looking at this, you can tell when to take the times off. And it looks, just looking at this, you can say the best time to take time off is in the morning, because that's they're no DX. However, there's a lot of DX on 20 meters. There's a lot of W's on 20 meters in the morning, so you can decide what to do at that point. So anyway, that's my little spiel on the WPX. If you look at the charts, you can figure out what to do and where to be at what time. And hopefully this will be useful to you. So the next slide says, good luck in the WPX, and I'll turn it back to Andy.
I'm not sure it goes to me, but
Will those charts be available?
Oh, that's up to somebody, not me.
hopefully, I would certainly hope they would be.
Yeah,
one thing that I have a sort of a rule of thumb: if you're at a station where you can seriously run, like our station on Aruba, 100 cues on 40 are worth 170 on the high bands, roughly speaking. It's not 2 to 1. The points are 2 to 1. However, that you get additional prefixes when you work more guys. So that's my equivalent of low to high bands is 100 to 170. But
yeah, that's true if you're really running guys. If you're in California, actually you can run almost nothing. so the bottom line. Anyway, what I'll do is I'll send out, if they don't make this available, I'll make it and send it out to the reflector as a PPT.
So Dave, I think you're back in charge, Dave.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thanks, Bob. That's great, and we'll definitely either send it out or make it available. So I'm going to turn it right over to Jim. He's going to talk about some issues of noise, give a short presentation, and then we'll move on to Doug.
Okay, are we good?
Q5.
Okay. I had asked for suggestions about what you folks would like me to talk about. I didn't get any. So I'm going to zero in on a lot of questions, or a common set of questions that I get email. And so this is going to be a refresher on chasing noise. It's going to be a selected part, a beginning part really, of the talk I've given before on that topic. All right, let's see. Okay, I'm not advancing. Oh, here we go. All right, so this section is really about knowing the enemy. In order to defeat it, we have to know about it. And we have two fundamental types of noise. The first is impulse noise. Something is arcing, creating spikes. And the impulses have infinite harmonics. They contain all frequencies, but when they arrive at our receivers, all frequencies may be very different in signal strength for a wide variety of reasons. Electronic noise is all the harmonics of square or rectangular waves that are used by some kind of equipment. Almost everything that's got a microprocessor, any kind of computing function in it, is going to generate this noise. The noise, though, occurs only at the harmonics of those square waves. The common sources of impulse noise we know about. Lightning, of course, is static in a distance and propagated. An awful lot of it comes from the power company's system. Broken or dirty insulators, loose or broken fittings, failing equipment, and a new culprit, surge suppressors. They, when they fail, get very, very noisy. Defective neon signs and street lights are a problem. And something I didn't realize, defective doorbell transformers. Electric fences will do this, and some fluorescent lighting will. The common sources of electronic noise, the largest source, the most problematic, because there's so damn many of them, are switch mode power supplies. They include battery chargers, low voltage lighting, virtually anything that we buy and plug into the wall nowadays in the last 15 years probably has a switch mode power supply in it. The controllers for variable speed motors, which are in all sorts of things, they're a big problem. The ballasts for fluorescent and other lighting can be a problem. Then any equipment with digital circuitry is going to generate noise. And of course, plasma TVs, which thankfully are kind of going away. So what is electronic noise? It's the harmonics of the oscillators or clocks that are producing the square or rectangular waves. The square waves have a very large number of harmonics. Fast rise times creates strong harmonics. In other words, very fast corners, very square corners. The harmonics in digital equipment are stable in frequency. Harmonics from most power equipment are not stable, they drift. If we understand what a switch mode power supply is, let me start by talking about a linear supply, the old-fashioned ones that we've used for 100 years. Transformer, rectifier, filter, and maybe a regulator. The AC current from the power line flows in pulses that recharge the capacitor at the peak of each 60 hertz cycle. And so here, the harmonics are present only at audio frequencies. For switch mode power supplies, we start off with a linear supply, but then we don't filter it very well. All we want to do really is rectify it and kind of get it going. That produces DC with a lot of ripple, and that DC is now used to generate a square wave, which is much easier to filter. All of that, of course, makes it smaller and cheaper. As I mentioned, the square wave, a good designer of any of these power supplies is going to generate a square wave with a very fast rise time because it's more efficient. There'll be less dissipation in his devices. But fast rise time means many strong harmonics. The strong harmonics run higher in frequency, and the harmonics are spaced at 2x, twice the square wave frequency. The square wave frequency in these power handling things is free running. It drifts. It's not controlled by a clock. It typically is modulated by random noise. We'll talk about that in a minute when I look at some spectrum. But it's dithered, and it's got 120 hertz ripple in it. The dither is there so that the power in the radiated signal, the noise signal, is split between the carrier and the sidebands. So the carrier is weaker, and it helps them meet FCC limits for emission at a single frequency. In addition, all of this has an FM component, so the carrier wobbles in frequency. Sounds kind of like a growl. This is really obvious on the broadcast band, but it's present everywhere. These are, of course, in low voltage lighting, and including all track lighting, battery chargers, wall warts, line lumps, and as I said before, into almost all of modern equipment. Here's a typical signature of a switch mode power supply. So we have one supply here, and we have another supply probably here. Okay. And these things drift after they're turned on. So here you can see the drift on the waterfall. Is my mouse showing up, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can see the drift on the waterfall. Here's a zero in on it with a, in other words, we're looking at a smaller width. And if we take the same picture over time, it's moved. This is the original 33-volt power supply that Stepper sold me. I had already suppressed the noise by more than 20 dB before I took these pictures. We're talking 1 cubic carload of ferrite cores, and that still wasn't nearly enough. I wouldn't have worked anything on 12 meters if I hadn't cleaned that up. Or in fact, what I actually did was throw it away. So here's a spectrum showing a bunch of stuff. These little lumps down here are switch modes. And the taller are digital signals. Who knows what they are? And some of these can be interrelated to each other. But the difference here, notice we said that if we don't modulate or dither that digital signal, it all comes out at the same frequency and averages to a higher value. Now, here we're looking at impulse noise down on the waterfall. And our clue to the fact that it's impulse noise is that it is horizontal on the waterfall. We don't see any spectrum generated by this noise. So this happens to be lightning crashes. So here we have a CW signal. You get to know how to look at those. Here's a digital signal, and here's a sideband signal. The great thing about spectrum displays is that they are spectacularly good RFI tools. And the beauty of this whole thing is that SDR receivers are now very inexpensive. We don't have to buy expensive spectrum analyzers. We can buy an SDR for $100, 120, even cheaper. There are some I've seen that are in the $30 range. We can use them with free software that runs on almost any operating system that we might have. When we do that, we study the pan adapter display, the spectrum, the waterfall. We listen to the audio, and since we're on a computer, we can save the data, share it, print it, and so forth. And most of these run on a USB connection to the computer. Here's a very popular one and a very versatile one. If you're just going to buy one, this is a pretty good choice if that's all you're going to do with it. It's 14 bits, so it's got a pretty good dynamic range. It covers a very wide spectrum, and we can look at a display up to 9 megahertz wide. That can be very useful when you're trying to figure out what kind of animal you got hold of. Free software for all the standard operating systems, and an SMA connector for the input. This is very quick and dirty to get running. There are more exotic versions of this with a couple of, I think you can have a couple of separate receivers going on at the same time with fed from different antenna inputs. Here's a cute little guy. The virtue of this one is that it's very small. That thing is plugged into a USB port. So it's very portable. It would be nice if you wanted to chase signal, but not so great if you're trying to diagnose, because you can only look at 192 kilohertz of spectrum width. And these are sold from the UK. This is a nice radio. It happens to be a full radio. It's a 10-watt radio. It's discontinued, but this has a very nice spectrum display. Can go up to 10 megahertz and covers up to 6 meters. Its connection to the computer is Ethernet and runs on 12 volts. So these other radios will run on the USB. You don't need any additional power for those. In our 0V, who used to live here and did the software for it. Very nice. And of course, the K3, KX3, the Yellowcraft products. This package here can be very nice. Once again, for going out and chasing. Okay, we use these displays to identify the type of noise. Is it impulse noise or is it electronic noise? Why does this matter? Well, because impulse noise consists of all frequencies. It can be chased anywhere on any frequency where we can hear it. We don't have to listen to it on the band where it's bothering us. Now, we can best zero in on it when we get very close to the source by listening at the highest frequencies. But because electronic noise is not present at all frequencies, and it can be very different. I mean, we can have electronic noise that only shows up on 1 or 2 bands. So we've got to chase it on the frequencies where we hear it. We'll talk a little bit about making good use of spectrum displays. The first rule of spectrum displays is that averaging is our friend. Any signal that is stable in frequency, that is coherent, will stand out. And with a lot of averaging, random noise goes down to 0. So that's the way we make signals show up. So a good rule of thumb with spectrum displays is use as much averaging as practical on the spectrum display, but do not do averaging on the waterfall. So the rule then is to use a lot of averaging to emphasize signals and suppress random noise. And by random noise, I'm talking about stuff that essentially it's band noise. It's not coherent. It's not coming in general from any specific source. We always set the bottom of the display to the band noise floor. So if we're looking at a waterfall, the waterfall will be black anywhere that there's no signal. And then we set the top of the display to the strongest signals. So this gives us the most dynamic range. It lets us get a better view of the enemy. The waterfall is the most useful part of the display. So when we set up our display, we want to set it for the largest practical waterfall. At the very least, set it to show at least 2 minutes. And there are some examples where some much longer waterfall times can be extremely useful. NK7Z was the first guy to use this, or the first guy who I saw who used the trick of using a 24-hour waterfall to study the operating times of the noise sources by him. And this information can yield clues to help us think about what that source might be when we're going to look at it or look for it. Chasing noise is got a lot of Sherlock Holmes kind of stuff going on. This information also tells us the times of day when we need to chase it, and the times of day may give us clues about what it is. Another beautiful part of it is that almost all of us have multiple noise sources, and they can be present simultaneously. They come on and off at different times and so forth. So you don't need to copy this entire link, but go to NK7Z's website, and he's got links there for RFI survey techniques. And it's just spectacularly good and useful. You look at this stuff and you say, oh yeah, this is way cool. Here is a well set up waterfall display, except that I should have made the waterfall larger. But the point is that this has got a whole lot of averaging. So all of this noise and this random stuff is going away. Otherwise, if I didn't have the averaging on, I'd have all this stuff bouncing around all through here. And it wouldn't be obvious about what this noise was. That's about all I want to say about that. I got a couple of quick hints here. When we have, in the past, when we've been winding chokes, in a lot of cases, especially if we're just clamping chokes onto interference sources, we just start winding a bunch of turns. Well, one thing I learned in my last round of research that generated that new set of choke guidelines is that we don't want we don't want any crossovers in the windings. In other words, we want the turns to be wound in sequence. So what I did when I wound this is I did this to here, to here, to here, and out here. Okay, so as the turns go around the core, they're in sequence. Now, when I close this, it will obviously, I'll need to probably tie it down to lock it in place. But crossover turns can cancel each other, which is not a good thing. The other thing I wanted to show, and I can talk more about this later, but this is an idea that I got from one of the guys that sells a lot of box hardware. I can't think of his call. He's a K7. And these are lightning arresters from, oh boy, somebody remind me.
AF7P Metalworks and
yeah, these are array solutions.
Yeah.
So these are array solutions. Now, when I started out with my station, K6XX built a really beautiful entry panel for me on a big honker piece of copper, and I used feed throughs. Well, the problem with those is that the GDTs will occasionally fry for various reasons, like an operator error or a lightning strike of some sort. So when you want to change it, you have to literally take the old one out and buy a new one and put it in. These are not, these are user replaceable. So this is a standard electrical box from a good electrical supply company. I think I paid about 180 bucks for it with this back panel. And then W6GJB made the mounting brackets here. These are standard electrical strain reliefs, that is power system electrical strain reliefs. And then this is 4-inch PVC going through the wall into the shack. This is not filled up in the picture, but I've almost got it filled up now. I've been moving my wire antennas over to this. And this is the bond going down to the ground system. So that's what I got to say today, and questions are welcome.
Hey, Jim. I think we probably should move along. I would suggest if people have questions, post them to the reflector, or they could probably contact you directly. But thanks, that was terrific. And I think we better move right along. So the next presentation and the main presentation for today is by Doug Grant, K1DG, and many of us know him, but if you don't, he's won many contests. He was a WRTC gold medal winner and also 2 bronze medals. He's got a big station in Maine and I think also a home station in New Hampshire. And he's going to talk to us about accuracy in logging and the effect it has on our scores.
Let me unmute myself first and let's see, where did I want to start? I guess I can go here, share sound, and here we go, but I'm not on my first slide yet. I got to go back to my first slide. Hold on, everybody. While I'm screwing around with this, let me just say that it's nice to see all of you. Since we didn't have Visalia this year or last year, Bill, I'm stuck. Something's not working here.
Okay, just reshare and then start at the main slide and then, well, start at the main slide in your thing and then.
All right, hang on.
If you want me to share, I can do it too, but let's try to get you going first.
Yeah, by the way, Doug, one thing I noticed when I was talking, I could not use the keyboard to advance slides I had to use my mouse wheel.
Yeah, that's okay. I'll find some button that works. Anyway, as I was saying, it's, there we go. Nice to see all of you, even though it's virtual. I've really missed Visalia last year and this year because it's usually my only chance to see all of you left coast guys, but nice to be here virtually anyway. So what I'm not going to talk about is the log checking process too much or the software, a few little things about it. I don't want to get into a discussion of any specific QSOs removed from your log unfairly. And I want to give you this quote, which is from pretty much every log checker in the world, which is that log checking is not perfect. And the goal of the exercise is to make sure that the order of finish is correct. And that's just the way it is. What I am going to talk about is how to read the log checking report that you get from the contest sponsors, what you can learn from it to improve your final score, and looking at where certain kinds of errors originate. And I've got some interesting, I think, examples. I originally gave this talk at Contest University in 2018, and I've reprised it a couple of times for other clubs that thought it was interesting. And I wrote an article in the NCJ, which was the NCJ's first attempt to do multimedia stuff. So the article has a lot of links in it that take you to some of the audio clips that you guys will be hearing tonight live. So if you want to chase down some more information, if you're an NCJ subscriber, you can go listen to that stuff. So what's in your log checking report? Well, it tells you stations that are not, where you are not in their log. So you claim the QSO, but they did not claim to work you. So you lose that contact. If you have a call sign that is definitely incorrect, you'll learn about that. If you've copied the exchange wrong, unique calls, that is call signs that appear in your log, but not in any other log of anybody else who submitted a log for the contest. You'll get a list of stations that have copied your call incorrectly and stations that have received a not in log from you. In other words, they think they worked you and they logged you, but you didn't log them for whatever reason. And we'll look at a few of those examples. So not in log means you're not in the other guy's log at the time in your log, plus or minus a 10-minute window. You're not in the other station's log on the band in your log, and there's nothing remotely close to your call. The log checking software does look for call signs that are close, off by one letter, 2 letters that are switched, things like that. But if you're not in the log and there's nothing that can be argued is that the guy mangled your call and you really did make the contact, then you lose the QSO. And there are some examples coming. Now, an incorrect call might show up if the call sign in your log is something badly mutilated in call sign entry, like K1DGGGGGGGGG, where you fall asleep with your finger on the G button, or K1DG05 and you forgot to hit the tab bar or the space bar or whatever moves to the copied zone. It's an incorrect call if the QSO in your log matches on the same time and band an entry with your call sign in another log, but with a different call. For example, you'll put K1DG in your log, but you actually worked K1DJ on phone or on CW K1BG, or on either mode, you worked N1DG and you logged it as K1DG. Those are all found to be incorrect if they cross-check that way. You will also be dinged for an incorrect call if there's no such call in the available government databases. And some governments do make their databases available around the time of the contest, and some don't, but the ones that do, those databases are used in log checking. An incorrect exchange might be a miscopied serial number, name, state, whatever the exchange is for that contest. There's really no excuse for having the wrong zone in the CQ Worldwide. Most of the zones are determined from the call sign easily. There are a few ambiguities, but sometimes they're okay. You'll probably hear the guy. Unless you change the call after you've hit enter, and I've done that on more than a few occasions. So I log a guy that's in zone 15, then I go back and fix his call because he's really a guy in zone 14, but I don't go back and change the zone, and I lose the QSO for an incorrect exchange. Beware pre-fills. They will get you in more trouble than they will benefit you. People do move. People do operate from different QTHs. And the best example is N2IC, who operated the Worldwide CW in Zone 5 the past 2 years. And each year, over 900 guys logged him in zone 4 and lost credit for the contact because Steve usually operates from his home in New Mexico, which is in zone 4. And people just assumed that's where he was, or the software assumed it. And so they lost the QSO. Unique calls are call signs that appear only in your log. They're not usually removed from your log. There are some contests which do require that the call, that the QSO appear in both logs. Most uniques are really miscopied calls, and you get away with one because it can't be proven that you busted it, because there's no call sign close to it that submitted a log that can be cross-checked. A few are really legitimate QSOs, and if there are a lot of uniques in a log, then it becomes a little bit suspicious, and the log checkers give it a little bit more scrutiny. If someone copies your call sign incorrectly, they lose the contact, you don't. Again, there are a couple of contests like the Russian contest and the Keyman's Club of Japan contest, where if someone copies your call incorrectly, you both lose the contact. And what you should, if you find that a lot of people are getting your call wrong, you might want to think about sending slower, use different phonetics or whatever. I am personally plagued with the letter G in my call sign. The soft G sound sounds like a J, and in fact, in the French language, the letter G is pronounced J and the letter J is pronounced G, which is confusing enough for everybody. K1BG is on a lot, N1DG is on a lot, so my call sign gets screwed up pretty routinely. As you can tell, the DG is my initials. I thought about changing my name and then getting a different call sign, but that was way too much trouble. So I put up with broken calls from other guys sometimes. When stations are receiving not in log from a QSO with you, it may be that something that you did wrong. If you make a contact, you should log it. You should log all the dupes. It allows the log checking process to figure out what really happened. You should log the 0-point QSOs because you may be a multiplier for the other guy, things like that. So log everything. The log checking software will sort it all out. In some contests, you can use the XQSO tag to give the other guy credit for the QSO, but not claim the QSO yourself. That's generally for oops QSOs. If you're in a multi-single or multi-two and you have a band change violation, or you click on a cluster spot and call a guy and work him and realize that you just made a QSO on 7085 transceive, and you really don't want to claim credit for that QSO because you were operating out of the band, you can give that the XQSO and you won't lose a QSO or a penalty, and the other guy will still get credit for the contact. But somehow the QSO should be in your log. If you worked someone, log it. So I've got a few examples here. And let's see if these QSOs took place.
Tango, Yankee Tango 0 Whiskey, Yankee Tango 0 Whiskey. Okay.
Papa India 4 Charlie Oscar Mike 595.
Okay, now let me set this up and tell you what this is. This is me doing SO2R, the guy you heard at the beginning, the YT0X, that was on 75 meters. PI4COM was on 160 meters. So I'm trying to work a few guys on 160 meters here on the phone in the CQ Worldwide in 2017. I know working Europeans on 160 in a phone contest from the West Coast is a foreign concept, so I want to make sure you understand that's what's going on. So anyway, let me get back to the audio clip.
Roger, thank you. Kilowatt 1 Delta Germany contest. Delta Papa 6 America 595. Delta Papa 6 America 595. Delta Papa 6 America 5905. Roger, thank you.
Okay, that QSO sounded pretty good to me. I logged it, and you can see I have PI4COM in the log, DP6A. However, DP6A does not have my QSO in his log. So what's going on here? In fact, he doesn't even show that he's on 160. So I happen to have access to the some SDR recordings from Europe. And here's what one of them sounded like. I'm pretty weak in Europe on this particular SDR. And you hear the Europeans. I thought maybe he was calling someone else on my frequency, someone in Europe.
Papa 8004, Charlie, Oscar, Mike. 5914. Delta Papa 6 Alpha, Delta Papa 6 America, Delta Papa 6 America. Delta Papa 6 America. Delta Papa 6 America. Roger, Roger, thank you, 5914, 73.
So the timing on that sounded about right. There's no one else on that frequency. He's not working someone else in Europe, but I'm not in his log. So what happened? Beats the crap out of me. I never found out. Here's another one that's kind of interesting.
Tango 42 American. Tango 42 American, big signal 595. Thank you, 598, QSL. QSL, can we go to what? Can you operate 160 meters? We can try, yes. Okay, how about 1810, 1810, I'll call you there. Okay, let's go there and give me a chance to tune, okay? Okay, I'll give you a couple of minutes, then I'll call, okay? Okay.
All right. Now, does that contact sound okay? I mean, we had a nice little QSO, nice dialogue, a conversation. We made a sked for another band, but I got a nod and log, and so did he. It turns out that I think what happened was he went to 160 meters, screwed around trying to tune up, maybe heard me, maybe called me. I didn't work him on 160, but apparently he forgot to hit enter in the period from when I worked him on 40 until he finished trying to work me on 160. And then he finally hit enter, and you can see the times in his log and my log are 11 minutes apart. So we both got nod and logs, even though that QSO on 40 meters was absolutely perfect. Okay, here's another one. Let's listen to this one.
Kilowatt 1, Delta, Germany.
Kilowatt Delta Germany, before, thank you.
No, not before.
Yes, Kilowatt Delta Germany, Kilowatt Delta Germany. This is X426 Ocean Alpha, okay?
Okay, no, you're not in my log. We did not work before. You're 5905.
Your code?
Kilowatt 1, Delta, Germany.
Kilo 9.
No, Kilo 1.
Kilo 1, Kilo Germany, that is correct?
Kilometro 1, Dinamarca, Granada.
Okay, before, X426 Ocean Alpha, okay?
No, we did not work before. You're not in my log. Please log this QSO. You're 5905.
Okay, 5912, thank you.
Roger, thank you.
Okay, now despite my insistence that he logged the QSO, he didn't do it. So I got a nod and log for that. But listen to what happened 9 hours or 10 hours earlier. You have to listen real closely here, but it's kind of revealing.
Kilowatt 1, Delta, Germany. Kilowatt 1, Delta, Germany. Okay, Italy 6 Sierra, I think 595, okay? Italy 2 Sierra, thank you. Yeah, who's calling?
So what happened there obviously was I was trying to work II2S, but XQ60A was on the same frequency and he thought I was calling him when I was calling II2S. So he logged me when I wasn't calling him. And then later when I tried to work him, he thought it was a dupe. So we both lost the QSO. So here are a couple of ones, a couple of QSOs. How do I make you guys disappear? I've got, let's see, this way. Okay, now I can see better. So where'd my mouse go? There we go. So these are two interesting QSOs, just when the band was opening on 20. Oops, go back there. Come back here, you rascal.
Delta Lima 9 Hotel Bravo 595. Thank you. Kilowatt 1 Delta Germany.
Oscar November 1 Tango Oscar.
Okay, so that QSO with DL9HB sounded pretty good. Let's try this one down here.
Delta Juliet 6 Delta Oscar 595. A DJ 60O. Thank you. Kilowatt 1 Delta Germany.
Florida 6 Florida Tango Bravo.
Okay, so both of those came up as not in log in my log checking report. So what really was going on in that frequency? Well, I got, as I said, I had access to some SDR recordings made in Europe. So here's one. Here's DL9HB. Here's 14177. That was my run frequency. And I looked and noticed that there were a couple of other entries that were curious. At that time and that frequency, DL9HB and ES4RD both logged each other. So how did it happen that it sounded like I was working DL9HB?
Bravo, you 5915.
So you can see where that DL9HB and or ES4RD and I are sharing this frequency. We can't hear each other, but we can hear the guys that are calling us. So let's try this guy. This is from another location in Europe.
CQ contest, K1 Denmark, Germany. K1 Denmark, Germany. CQ contest, over. Ending in Bravo, 595. Ending Bravo. Station Bravo. Yours at Kilowatt 1 Denmark, Germany. Bravo, you 5915. CQ contest, K1 Denmark, Germany. K1 Denmark, Germany. CQ contest, Denmark. Delta Lima 9 Hotel Bravo, you 5915. Thank you, Kilowatt 1 Delta, Germany.
So in that one, you could hear that the DL9H, ES4RD and I were sharing the frequency, and neither one of us could tell the other one was there. And here's what happened with the other QSO. This one's interesting because you'll notice that DJ60O logged ES4RD's call wrong. So he got a not in log, which serves him right for not working me. Anyway, I'll skip the rest of this one. You get the idea. So here's an interesting one, a couple of other ones. This is a case of the causing a not in log. YL3FT got a not in log from me. He was not in my log. Well, what happened? Let's listen to this, this little stretch of audio.
The G3 Whiskey Golf Norway. 73 K1 Delta Golf.
Yankee Lima 3, Fox Tango.
Yankee Lima 2, 595.
Yankee Lima 3, Fox Tango.
Yankee Lima 3, Fox Tango. Thank you. K1 Delta Golf. Okay, Delta 44 Bravo 595. Okay, Delta 44 Bravo Sierra, thank you. Who's the Tango Delta 595?
Yes, Yankee Lima 2 Tango Delta. Please correct call Yankee Lima 2 Tango Delta.
Oh, okay, Yankee Lima 2 Tango Delta. I fixed that, okay. Thank you. K1 Delta Golf.
So you can see what happened there was YL3FT called me and I logged him, and then YL2TD called me after D44BS, and he thought I was working him before, but I miscopied his call and I mangled it. So I went back in the log, and you can sort of hear the pause in my voice as I went back, and I was spacing back in the log to change YL3FT to YL2TD, and that resulted in YL3FT losing the contact. Sorry, OM. So here's another interesting one. I worked UX7QG here.
Thanks, Kilowatt 1, Delta, Germany. Quebec, Germany, 595. So what is your prefix?
So it's a little bit interesting there. The YV5 EMG was calling me, and when I said I wanted the guy ending in Germany, UX7QG was the guy I wanted, and YV5 EMG thought it was him. And when I asked for the prefix, both UX7QG and YV5 EMG called back. EMG logged me, but I was not working him, and I never said his call. So you have to be careful that the guy you think you were, that you are getting ready to log, you better make sure he's really working you. This one you don't have to listen to too carefully because you'll hear what's going on. And normally I would have worked the guy very quickly when he called in. By the way, that last stretch that we listened to, that 1200 hour, I was curious and I went back and looked at it to see what kind of rate I was having. That was a 274 hour. And if I hadn't been screwing around with the YLs, I might have gotten a 300 hour out of it. But anyway, so here's one that's kind of interesting as well.
Thank you. K1, Denmark, Germany. Japan, America, 595.
Goes to Japan, America. 56, Romeo, Mike, India, 5915.
Okay, wait a minute. Who's at Japan, America?
Delta goes to Japan, America.
Delta Golf 2, Japan, America, 595.
5914, thank you.
Thank you.
Delta Lima 1, Golf Mike, Echo.
L1 GME, 595.
591, good luck.
Thank you. K1 Delta Golf. Oscar Charlie, 595.
So poor 986 RMI called in, gave me a report. If I had still been fully awake, I probably would have been able to put him in the log as well. But I got distracted with the partial call I got from DJ2JA, even though I heard a perfectly good full call from the other guy. So that was that one's on me. This is an interesting one because I have no explanation for what happened here. Listen to this contact. Tell me if it sounds okay to you. Oops, come back, mouse. There we go.
K1 Delta Golf.
Delta Lima 1, Quebec Whiskey.
L1QW 595.
Thank you, 5914.
Thank you.
Okay, so that sounded pretty good. That was a very routine working in yet another German. But it was, I got a not in log for it. And if you look at his log, he's not even on 15 meters at that time. He's got contact at 1604 on 20 meters, and then he goes to 40 meters and works his next guy 11 minutes later. And I have no idea why I'm not in his log. I don't think I've ever said anything bad about him. I don't know if I owe him a QSL card. I don't know if I stole his frequency once inadvertently, but he didn't work me or didn't log me. Now, what was interesting was many months after I gave this presentation at Contest University, DL1QW happened by that website, looked at it and said, "Oh my gosh, look at that." And he actually sent me an email and said, "That's my voice. I think someone must have been playing a recording of my voice because I did not work you." So how did it happen? I don't know. And even the guy on the other side doesn't know. Here's another one where there's no explanation.
November 4. November 4 again. November 4, something ending in Mike 595. November 4, Delta Whiskey Mike 595. Is it N4 Delta Whiskey Mike, is that right? Okay, 73, Kilowatt 1 Delta, Germany.
Now, of course, this was a 0-point QSO for me, and I spent a lot of time trying to drag that guy's call sign out of the muck on 20 meters, and I'm not in his log. The good news is I lost a 0-point contact, so it wasn't too bad. but he didn't log me. He was maybe on the band. He's got a gap in his log from 0037 to 1853, which is a very big gap. So I don't know what happened. Here's another one where I don't know what happened.
Ending in United 595. Okay, 1 Delta Papa United, thanks. Kilowatt 1 Delta Germany.
And I'm not in his log. In fact, here's his log from that stretch of time. You see that I worked him at 1333, and down here on at 1332 he worked someone, and 1339 he worked someone, and the only station that got a not in log from OK1 DPU was me. So again, I don't know, maybe I took his frequency once, maybe I owe him a QSL card, maybe I don't know what happened, but
He might have forgotten to hit enter.
he might have forgotten to hit enter, but he hit enter for all them other guys. But I don't know what he did wrong. And then here's another one, but it's the same kind of deal. So I'll just, after 1319, I won't play the clip, but he logged a bunch of guys and I should have been there. And I don't know what happened. The software crashed, power went out, whatever. But away I went. And this one was late in the contest. This is embarrassing because it's completely my error. But I'm not hearing my audio because someone else just coughed. Let me try it again.
Norway 7 Kilo Delta Tango 595. Thanks. Kilowatt 1 Delta Germany.
Hello, contest, CQ contest, Victor Echo 5, Sugar Fox contest.
K1 Delta Golf.
K1 Delta Golf 5904.
595.
Thanks, Victor 5, Sugar Fox.
So the situation there was I was doing SO2R. I was on running on 20 and tuning on 15 for multipliers, and or the other way around, I guess, and worked V5SF, but I hit enter twice, once when the SO2R box had me on 15 and once when it had me on 20, and so I screwed up. That was on me. But it was late in the contest. Now this one was really fascinating. This one took a lot of detective work to try and sort out. I have a not in log here from EA7 Bravo United United. So let's listen to the recording.
Ending in uniform 595. Ending in uniform. Echo Alpha 7 Bravo uniform 595. Echo Alpha 7 Bravo uniform 595. Thank you. Kilowatt 1 Delta Germany.
All right, well, it sounded mostly okay. The EA was good. The Bravo uniform was good. And I filled in the 7 because Super Check Partial showed me that I had worked EA7 BUU on some other bands, and I hadn't worked them yet on 20, so that seemed like a safe guess. But he didn't correct the call either. So that pretty much said, that's the call, that's the guy. But I got a not in log for it. Well, it turns out that one of the facilities in the log checking software is a thing called the reverse log, where if the station makes a bunch of contacts but doesn't send in a log, the software goes through all the logs and looks for that guy's call sign and creates an artificial log for him. So it's a reverse log compiled from all the guys who worked it. So it turned out EA3 BUU was also active. And I think he was just going through the band clicking spots. He didn't submit a log, so there was no way to cross-check the QSO. But if you look at the reverse log, you can see that looking at the times in the column here, you can see that EA3 BUU worked W2RE, then he worked W1NA. He's not going straight up and down the band. He's apparently just clicking spots. And then there's a gap from 13 to 19 where he didn't work anybody, but I have EA7 BUU in the log at that time. And then EA3 BUU is going along and apparently working a bunch of guys. Looks like he duped W2RE a few minutes later because he was spotted again or something.
So he was just going around calling guys, and I assumed it was EA7, but it was probably EA3. So that's why I got the not in log. So I actually went through every contact that I lost in that contest in the 2017 worldwide phone. And of the 15 not in logs, about half of them are my errors and about half of the other guy's errors. There are 29 not in logs that showed up in the other guy's log. And 11 of them were caused by the other guy logging an incomplete QSO. There were 5 errors by me. There were 3 call signs that were so bogus when they called in. I said, that's got to be a pirate. That's phony. That's bogus. So I didn't even log it. It turned out it was a legitimate call, and the guy lost the QSO because I thought his call looked funky and I didn't log it. So log everything. And on 10 of them, there was nothing on the recording, and I can't figure out what happened on those. So not in log things come from unlogged oops QSOs. You should use the X QSO, don't delete a QSO. An unlogged dupe, always log your dupes. Doesn't hurt and makes life better for the other guy in case he didn't think he worked you the first time. Frequency sharing is another place where not in logs come from, especially when the band is changing. If you log a QSO if you don't hit enter for 10 minutes, that's a problem. If you correct a call, but you're correcting a call that really was good in the first place, that's a problem. If you make a bad guess, or if you click on bad spots on the cluster, operating a K3LR in his multi-ops and is about the only time I use the cluster, right? And I never use it as a single op, but a K3LR on Sunday, the band map is completely full of bad spots, incorrect call signs, things that are screwed up.
Hey, Doug.
Yes, sir.
This is Bob. Could you explain what an XQSO is? Because some people may not understand how to put that in their log.
Yeah, I mentioned that a little earlier. If you look at your Cabrillo file, every QSO you submit starts with QSO and a colon. But if you replace that with XQSO and a colon, it means that you don't want credit for that QSO because you did something wrong, out of the band change, time violation, or whatever. But it allows the other guy to get credit for the contact. Not all the contests use it. It's a little bit controversial, but it's there, and I think the log checking uses it, so you can use the XQSO thing if you want to get rid of a contact, but let the other guy get credit. And then, of course, there are cockpit errors like logging on the wrong band, and PEBCAC is a term that probably everyone in Silicon Valley is acquainted with if they've ever worked with tech support, and it stands for problem exists between chair and keyboard. And sometimes stuff just happens. Caused not in logs arise when the other guy doesn't have your call correct, and that one's not your fault. If the other guy thinks he's working you, but you're working someone else, you have his call okay, or he thinks you have the call okay, but you don't, if he doesn't correct the call when you say it wrong. Both are mostly not your fault, but they happen. Any unlogged QSO that causes a not in log, whoever didn't log the QSO is to blame for whatever reason. So the log checking reports can help you improve. Sometimes the problem is yours. If you look at your error rate and it's significantly higher than some of your friends, then maybe you need to work on your accuracy. Sometimes you cause problems for others if you're causing a lot of not in logs. Sometimes it's not possible to figure out who was at fault and what happened. And of course, the main message is that log checking is not perfect. You will occasionally lose QSOs that were legitimate, and you will occasionally get credit for QSOs that you really should not get credit for. In my experience, they about even out, so deal with it. And that's it. I will take questions if anyone's still awake.
I have a question, Doug. This is Andy, AE6Y.
Oh, no, you used up your quota of questions last time you saw this presentation.
No. Here's the question, though. And I think I mentioned in my presentation that I actually won that contest last fall on log checking. So, but I went back and the CQ, the organizers sent me my log check LCR early and asked my comments, which I gave them. And actually, I found, and then they didn't take any because they said, sorry, we can't adjust it based on recordings. But that's okay. I figured these things even out. I kind of have your fatalistic attitude. But I have a specific question. I had 8 NILs, so I was not in 8 people's logs or 8 queues. I was Radio Tango 4, Florida, big Russian station. I worked him on 7252, which is out of his band. But I was running, he called me, my recordings show a very clear contact. My supposition then is that I logged it and he scrubbed his log and took that queue out. As a result, I lost that queue plus a penalty of 2 more. So my question is, should I have not logged the QSO myself? Or not? It was a clear contact, there's no question, but I guess he was out of the band.
Yep. I don't know. I log those and sometimes you're going to lose them because the other guy takes it out and stuff happens. Thank you, Randy.
So you're, yeah, but I've always just logged them. The same thing happens on Aruba where you get called by US guys out of the band, you know, on the phone band. And
yeah, I
typically just log them and don't worry about it. But it's a shame to lose a penalty of 2 more queues when you think you're being a good guy.
Well, there was one year, many years ago, I operated at VP2E in a multi-single, and I was operating on 21199, which is outside the US band. And in that contest, I had a pretty big hour. I had a 300 hour running Europeans because that's what I was trying to do. And I posted that somewhere, and N6TJ called me out and said, "I've been operating from ZD8 for 1,000 years, and I can tell you it's physically impossible to work 300 Europeans in 1 hour. You're full of crap." So I went back and I looked at the log, and he was right. I only worked 200 Europeans, but I worked 100 Ws outside the band. And I logged them all, and I don't think this log checking was that sophisticated at that time, so I don't think we lost all those QSOs, because I think most guys just logged it anyway. And so anyway, that's my logging guys out of the band story.
That's a great presentation. As VPCC, I congratulate you. And I'm waiting for TV Bob to make a comment like, "That's why I don't operate phone contests."
That's why I don't operate phone contests.
Thank you.
I did want to ask you if you've done this analysis on CW and also how you are doing the recording. Are you using your MK2R Plus to record it? I noticed you were putting both ears on a radio at a time and not one radio in each ear. At least that's the way it sounded in the recording.
Yeah, I've tried a few times. In fact, that particular contest, I thought I was all set up, right? I had gotten the wind test thing was all set up, thanks largely to you, on a last minute call to try and get everything working. And I had the recording set up, I had everything ready to go. And at 00 Zulu, I hit the record button and the wind test crashed and burned. And I was completely out of luck. So I gathered my wits about me and I grabbed my trusty, who makes that little, Olympus makes a little digital recorder gadget. And I had a way of plugging that in parallel with my headphones and recording the stereo audio that was going into my headphones for the whole contest. Had to shut it off to change the batteries once because it only records for about 40 hours and it was a 48-hour contest. But that's what I used for recording. And your other question was, have I done a similar analysis on my CW results? No, I have not. The phone one was a lot easier to listen to, other than, you know, all the mush and QRM and stuff like that. But listening to CW where the rates are slower and it takes longer to find the thing you want, I haven't done it. I do know anecdotally that K1BG sends me an email after every CW contest saying that I should send slower because guys keep logging me as him and him as me, and he gets QSL cards all the time. And I once got a very angry postcard from K1DJ before he got back into contesting. He sent me a postcard and then sent me a letter with a bunch of QSL cards and says, "I never operate HF, and I get all these QSL cards for contacts in March and October, and someone must be pirating my call, but maybe it's you. Could you check and see if these are your contacts?" And of course they were. And his angry postcard said, "Please try to make sure people copy your call correctly from now on." Yes, sir. Got it.
Thanks, Doug. Great job.
Anybody else?
Yeah, sure. So in the log checking, do they try to differentiate between running stations and calling stations?
Not sure what the question is.
So when they're trying to figure out whose fault it was, like whether it was the guy who was running guys, or it was the guy who called him that busted the call, and it's sort of ambiguous. I mean, you know, do you if in the log I've been on a frequency for like 3 hours, and it turns out that it kind of looks like it was really the guy who called me versus you know,
Well,
me that busted it, right?
I think that the log checking software is pretty agnostic. It doesn't care who's running. It doesn't care who's tuning. It just compares the logs, and if W9KKN claims a QSO with K1DG and K1DG doesn't have W9KKN in the log, you lose.
Yeah, I see.
It's if you want to do the analysis and figure out where the problem came from, that's on you. The log checking is just match QSOs. Hi, Dave.
Yeah, another place you can get in trouble in addition to pre-made lists is the feature of software that repeats what you put in a previous QSO. And in Sprint, of course, it will do it 3 times. And so if you made a mistake in the first minute because you were just getting going, it propagates through the whole log and you lose 3 Qs and lose the content.
Oh yeah, yes, I've had that one. Thank you very much for reminding me of one of my embarrassing mistakes. Oh, what do you mean explain it? Randy is sending me a note. He wants me to explain it. Okay, so you want me to explain the Sprint thing? I thought Dave did a great job explaining it. You work a guy early on and you type in, you work K5ZD and you log his name as, okay, I'll get that part. So you log K5ZD and you don't really hear him very well, but it sounds like he sent his name as Andy. And so the software remembers that his name was Andy. So then you work him on another band and it pre-fills Andy. And so you don't bother listening to the name that he sends, and it pre-fills it as Andy. So you got it wrong the first time, then you get it wrong the next time, then you work him on a third band and you don't bother listening to the name, and the program fills in Andy and it's really Randy. And so that's how you lose. Is that okay, Andy? I mean, Randy, whoever you are?
This happens to me all the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another cause of errors that I found in going through my LCR is just typing errors. I was looking, when I have a not in log, I typed K1TT and I just forgot the third T. And that's not one that you can spot unless you think, well, you want to figure out, is there a K1TT? But I didn't want to, I don't go through my logs looking for stuff like that. I give a quick glance and say, do I have K1TTTTTTT or something like that? Something obvious, but I don't look for calls that are different. But that was just a typing error. So those things happen too.
Yeah.
So it'd be a good reason to check the digital statistics as well as the CW and phone, because you're less likely to screw up a call on digital.
Well, the digital contests have their own sets of problems, which we won't go into, but
yes, the FT8 problems, for example.
Yes, the FT8 contest, for example, that had its own bunch of, what constitutes, when is a contact really complete is up for grabs with a lot of people. Not everyone agrees on that. I did want to make a comment though about was something that Andy said. Typos. I never look at my log for typos. I send it in. When it's done, pencils down, send the log in. And there were a few years when Randy and I, K5ZD, who I didn't know would be watching this, but is, so I can't talk about him too much, but I will. Randy and I got into this rivalry going on for a while where I was chasing him down, trying to catch him. And he kept winning every year. And there was one year where I had a claim score that was a little teeny weeny bit higher than his. And I said, could this be the year? No chance. There's not enough margin. Randy's really, really accurate. I'm going to lose 2%. He's going to lose 1%, and he's going to jump ahead of me, and that's going to be that. I think maybe I will look at this log so I don't lose anything stupid for typos. So I read that entire 4,500 QSO log, every single line, and I couldn't find anything that I wanted to fix because it looked funky to me afterwards, except for one W6 call sign. I said, that call doesn't look right. And I said, but changing it's not going to change anything. It wasn't a multiplier. It's a 0-point contact. The heck with it. I'm going to send it in anyway. And as it turned out, I happened to be on my game that year and I had a pretty low error rate. And it was enough to maintain just enough of a margin that it was the one time that I won the CQ Worldwide CW contest.
So that's a question. How much time do you spend trying to dig out a W's call when you know it's 0 points anyway? Is it possible if you get a not on log from a W and it's not a zone multiplier or something that you would lose anything?
Well, in the NCJ article, I actually confessed to one of the busted calls or not in logs was a W that I worked, and I tried 2 or 3 times and then just said, you know what, this is not worth the trouble, and I just logged with what I had. I figured it was close enough, and if I lost it, I lost it. But he would get credit for it, so that would all work out. I try to work guys because I try to get the calls right, and I spend too much time. You heard me working that N4 guy. I should have just cut my losses and said, thanks a lot for the contact, 73, and moved on. But no, I dragged it out. And see what I got for it? I got a not in log. At least I didn't lose any points.
Well, that's what I was asking is there any penalty or you lose anything other than a multiplier, which would be rare for a W?
No. You should try to log it at least close enough so that he doesn't lose any points for the contact, because it might be a multiplier for him. If it's not a multiplier for you, it might. Anybody else?
Hi, Doug. K3, you can go.
Go ahead, Bob. Okay, go ahead, Bill.
I thought it was Doug in there.
Doug, yeah. Hi. Yeah, this is Doug. I'm actually new to contesting, and I just did the 7QP. And my question is, there was a lot of guys who were using slashes after their call sign, like /6 or / their county code or / county code / another county code. Do I put all of that in the log? And does it have to be exactly what they send? Or can I just put their call sign in?
Pass.
I'll take that.
All right, go ahead.
I've done a lot of county expeditions and operated sometimes from 2 and 3 counties at once. When you are and done it when I was moving from one QTH to another, mobiles for the state QSO parties will move from one county to another, and so they will sign / and the new county abbreviation where they happen to be, so that you know that you can work that station again because he's in a new county. So that's one part of it. The second part of it is if someone is sending you a county abbreviation and a / and another abbreviation, he's telling you he's on a county line. And so depending on the logging software, and you have to study how the logging software works, but depending on the logging software, if he's sending his call and you log the county / county / it will automatically fill in those abbreviations in the right place in the log for counties.
Yeah, but I guess this question was,
my question is when they check.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, do I lose it?
No, I don't think you're going to lose it if you've got the call sign right and you have a call sign with a / county abbreviation or call sign without / county abbreviation. As long as the right band, right frequency, and you log the county correctly in the exchange field, you shouldn't lose it.
I think that's the right answer. I mean, these QSO party guys are all different. They all use different log checking software, but they're all accustomed to people logging stuff weird because people send stuff weird. So
yeah,
okay.
Don't worry about it.
A good way to do that when you're working a state QSO party is go to the rules for that state and see how that's set up, and they'll tell you what the variables are.
Okay.
KA6.
I'm up here in Oregon, and during the 7QP, I signed WB6JJJ/7 on every one. And there were a number of people that only used my first part of the call and not the /7. And they, excuse me, they got dinged for it. So they forgot the stroke 7, and you got to be careful with that, the logging software.
Yeah, I think that, this is Andy again, I think the general rule is I would log the stroke 7 or stroke 6 or whatever that is. I don't log mobile. I don't typically do stroke P or QRP, certainly not that. And I wouldn't put the counties as part of the call, I think, in the logging. I don't think that either.
Roger that.
Let's ask Doug about the PX, about CQ Worldwide, though, log checking. Like AA5ZA Portable 7, for example. If I don't log the Portable 7, but he submits his log that way, is that a problem?
Depends on the contest.
I have never logged / call area, and I've never been dinged for it.
In the Russian DX contest, you will be.
Yep.
Oh.
And
I
he will be
worked the
too.
same station. One time he called /QRP. The second time he didn't. I logged it 2 different ways. I lost one of the contacts because his log showed one and not the other.
Because of a QRP? Really?
Yep.
Wow.
That's the Russian DX contest for you.
Yeah.
That's an oddball. Dave, were you going to say something, BIM? Because you were a Portable
Yes.
7 too. Yeah.
Yeah, with the, we're talking well, I have 2 different things here. One is the contest log, and the second one is logbook of the world. So what I do on the county, the slant counties, is I go ahead and I log those, because that will help differentiate during the contest that the guy is in a new county. So if I log AE6Y stroke SMAT, San Mateo, then when he moves over to Contra Costa County, it now comes up as a new call. So I will log it that way. And that works for the contest. However, TQSL does not like that. So at the end of the contest, I don't need that anymore. The counties are all in their county field. So I will go through and I will edit out all of the strokes except for the Portable 5, Portable 7, whatever. And then submit that as a log. I actually keep both logs. I save a copy of the original log, and then I delete those other ones out so that when I submit it through Logbook of the World, it goes through as a valid call.
And in general, if you've used the /county in your log to keep track of the call, to keep track of this mobile moving between counties, the logging software will not put that /whatever in the Cabrillo. It'll send in the log that the contest is looking for. The beauty
I don't believe that's true.
I'm pretty sure it is, because I've done a lot of it and I've never been dinged. But by the same token, the reason you want, when you log the call in 1MM, for example, if you log the other guy's call / the county abbreviation, it will show up when it is finding that call again, and it'll show you that you now, if he's in a new county, it'll show you he's in a new county. It'll differentiate it.
That's why I put it in the log during the contest, but I will take them out afterwards.
Yeah.
I have a comment. This is Dave WD6T. I've always wondered why the rules of contests don't make it explicit what the scoring rules are. So sometimes they do and sometimes they don't, but it seemed like that would be helpful, in strategy. Also, it would be helpful to say things like log everything and log dupes and things like that.
What do you mean by the scoring rules? Like, penalties and stuff are usually published.
Like you get dinged for, you lose a queue for a nil, or you don't lose a queue for a bad exchange, or whatever the rules are.
Well, most of the bigger contests do tell you what the penalties are for contacts that are taken out of your log. Some things come out with no penalties. Some things come out with equivalent penalties of a certain number of QSOs. Most of the rules do that, and in your log checking report, it says that specifically when you get your log checking report. It'll say, this QSOs in this list were removed along with the equivalent point value of 2 more QSOs or 3 more QSOs, or just taken out of the log with no penalty. Or in the case of uniques, in most of the bigger contests, it'll say these contacts are judged to be unique because they didn't show up in any other log, but they're not removed from your log, and there's no penalty. So most of the contests, the bigger contests, do give you all the details of what's going to happen if you screw anything up. So the obvious answer is try not to screw anything up.
One of the details that was news to me was the 10-minute rule, that you got to log it within 10 minutes of the other guy, otherwise you'll lose it. That's not published that I know about.
Oh, maybe someone will publish that.
Does that depend on the given contest log?
It's definitely dependent on the contest log checking.
Well, I mean, if your log is if you log someone 10 minutes off from when you worked them, what's up with that?
Well, it's like the example you showed where you
Right.
lost it because of
Right.
it.
Well, you know, you should work a guy, log it. Period.
Some log check, well, of course, but some log checkers, some log checkings, just like I think Tree's software, at least in the old days, it did not care about the time that you logged. It just made sure the band and call matched. Didn't care about the time.
Yeah,
Well,
but I
one
mean,
of
even
the
the
things
frequency, like how, you know, what is the allowed skew? I mean, a lot of that's sort of dark magic that's not allowed to be known. You know, like how far off frequency can I log him? Is it just the same band? You know, how far off time? Is it within 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 1 minute?
Well, the frequency is not the big deal. It's more you're on the same band. But the time, you know, one of the big problems that the log checkers go through is correcting the times in guys' logs. Logs come in where every QSO is 14.5 or 14 minutes off, or an hour off, or 2 hours off, or 5 hours, or 4 hours. They may have a fixed time offset, and that gets fixed up.
I say if you're logging with pencil and paper, you're probably not getting the frequencies down really accurately.
You're logging with pencil and paper.
You're probably not
glad
winning.
I'm glad you're having fun, and you probably aren't really too concerned about your log checking report.
And this does show that there is a distinction in terms of how hard you should try to work to get the call writers. For example, CQ Worldwide with a penalty of 2 extra Qs if you get an NIL. At CQP, I assume if I log somebody and it's wrong, I think it just gets removed. I don't think there's a penalty. So it would imply that your strategy should be a little bit different, and that in CQ Worldwide, for example, where there is a penalty, you have to be a little more careful, or maybe you don't log it. And whereas in many, like in state QSO parties, I think, you know, you want to be friendly and log everything and do whatever you can, and presumably you're not penalized if you get it wrong.
So that's a question for Doug, is how hard do you work? I mean, when do you give up? Here you are running 300 an hour and some super weak guy is there and you almost work him and you just can't get the call after 4 or 5 tries. Do you say, call me later? What do you do?
Yeah, that's a situational kind of thing. If I think I can probably get the call, I'll stick with him. But if there are 2 or 3 other loud guys who called in at the same time, and I can probably make more money by working those guys faster, then I'll say, thanks, try again later, and then move on.
I've noticed an interesting thing though in Aruba, and that is if I work hard to get a call and it takes a while, I get flooded with more calls. And I think somehow people listening like that. At least that's how I look at it. They're thinking, well, that he did a nice thing, I'm going to work it. Now, I'm not sure that really is true, or maybe that's my psychological, you know, kind of feeling as a way of justifying the minute and a half I just wasted. But I have the feeling that if I really do dig a call out successfully, somehow the world is a better place for it and people appreciate it.
It's different when you're in W6. They're not going to wait in line much longer to work you.
Well, that may be.
Yeah, well, and while you're listening for the weak guy, somebody steals your frequency.
Well, there are all kinds of bad things that can happen. You know, no good deed goes unpunished, Bill, sometimes.
Right.
Doug, I had a question about CW and the difference between log checking errors on CW and on phone. The example I have is from the most recent CQ Worldwide CW. Our W6YX call sign was logged by somebody as W6YNT. It was logged by somebody else as W6YTA. Those are off by 1 symbol in Morse, but they're off by a couple of characters. So we ended up getting a nil, and the other guy ended up getting, I guess, a unique. Is there any I'm just curious, why aren't the symbols checked?
Are you volunteering to write the software?
That's a tough one for any log checker to figure out those kinds of errors. And how are you sending the CW? Because it could be that this transmitting got garbled up or interrupted by relay problems or
No, it was
slow
just two
amplifiers.
guys. It was just two guys. I'm sending it with a SO2R box, a YCCC SO2R box.
One thing that can happen is if they're clicking on a skimmer generated spot and the skimmer mangled your call, and that's what they're calling, then that's one place where an error can arise.
Also be they're using a remote and their audio got chopped up.
And that's also a possibility. So, you know, stuff happens.
Right, but it seems like that's a unique kind of error in CW. And I know that it's happened before, that I've seen these same types of errors where, you know, there'll be like one DIT that's been replaced by either a space or a DAW or something. And it just seems like those would be easy to catch.
Well, as I said, if you're volunteering to write the algorithm, I'm sure that the log checking software authors would welcome the opportunity to add that functionality.
Okay, I'll look into it.
Yeah, Randy, I can also.
I have a question about the uniques because like Sunday morning I go to a local net here just as my friends and work them in the contest, but many of them are uniques because they're not contesters. How's that work out?
Well, you know, everybody has a friend or a couple of friends that go around and work only them and don't work anybody else. But that's not where most uniques come from. You know, there are a few of them that show up. I've had uniques where I don't know the guy. I don't know why he worked only me in the whole contest, but that was the deal. So there are uniques, and how does it get handled? In most contests, they get ignored. Okay, it's fine. Maybe it was your friend working. Congratulations. Nice to have friends. But in a few contests, if they can't match QSOs, if they don't get both logs, the Russian contest and the KCJ contest, then you lose the contact because you don't both get them.
Doug, as you mentioned, uniques are not just your friend calling you. There really are uniques. I remember a distinct case where 4U1 VIC showed up as like 15 different uniques in the CQWW contest. Real call was, of course, 4U1 VIC, and then they show everything: 4U2 VIC, 4U7 VIC, 4U2 VEC, things like that. Yep. So that's where the source of the uniques really are.
Yep.
Hey, Randy, what were you trying to say?
Yeah, I was. There was on the symbol thing before. As you pursue these edge cases, you also create a whole new set of edge cases. So we have spent a lot of time trying to do symbol processing, and what you realize is 4-letter calls can be transposed into almost every other 4-letter call. And so when we ran it on 4-letter calls, we had so many false busts that we just had to turn it off. So you need a longer call if you want to avoid this problem.
Right. I noticed that JA5TX, we copied as JA5TTT, but we got an incorrect call and he got the QSO. So he had a longer call by 1 letter.
Yeah, well, those longer calls give us a better chance of matching things.
Right.
Okay. We have spent a lot of time on this, a lot of time. K1EA has done some really amazing stuff, but these short calls, they're great for speed, but they're not so good for log checking.
By the way, who is writing these log checking programs, and how is that all organized?
Well, it depends on actually, we can talk about that on the next meeting.
Yeah, that's your next meeting with K5ZD as your speaker. Because he's a lot closer to it than I am.
It's a highly classified list so that people don't get death threats.
I have a question. It's not really I suppose it's a little off topic, but you know, I noticed in some contests there'll be another contest going on at the same time, And you could work, 400 more people if you just work the guys in the other continent. And they're all going to be, either uniques or maybe one other guy is going to do the same thing. And like this happened to me in the RAC, and then the CWT showed up at 6 in the morning. And, and I noticed one of my competitors was working a lot of these guys, and I was kind of conflicted about it. I just wonder how you treat things like that, or what the philosophy is.
I don't know, a contact's a contact. If you log it and the other guy logs it and you send them in, then great. There was an incident a number of years ago where the New Mexico QSO party was taking place the same time as the sprint. And a station in New Mexico who happened to be in Grant County, no relation, changed his name for the sprint to Grant, so that he could work all the guys who were looking for QSOs in the New Mexico QSO party. And he dragged out a few more sprint guys. He worked a lot of #1 sprint QSOs, but the other guys got Grant County, New Mexico, and they went away happy.
I think that happens not infrequently. I mean, you get on, you hear a Parks on the Air guy or something, and you can talk him into a sprint contact or an NAT contact.
No, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's just if you're trying to coax an exchange, a sprint exchange out of a guy who's doing a Parks on the Air thing, you're probably going to lose the sprint.
Well, that may be too, right? But sometimes you'll hear a North American DX station CQing though, and say, "Hey, can we get a quick contact? What's your name? Can I give it #1? Is that okay?"
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Heck.
A lot harder to do that on CW than on phone.
Yeah, no, on phone it's easier to talk somebody into a contact, right? But that's one way to get multipliers.
Sure.
What about someone like V73NS who will not give a serial number?
I don't know.
Well, if you're not the only guy who logged them, chances are you're going to get credit for it. So log them.
Well, he probably isn't going to send them a
I
log.
always ask somebody, "Is it okay? I'll take #1. Is that all right?" If somebody said no, I guess I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, they almost
Never
never do
has.
say no. They almost always say okay.
Well, I mean, they normally do say it's okay. Yeah.
Well, V73NS is aggressively aggressive. I never waste time with him.
Well, he's a multiplier though.
Well, yeah, but you're not going to get a QSO out of him.
Well,
that's the problem.
If you get a signal report out of him in CQ Worldwide, that's good enough for me.
That sounds like more of a West Coast problem than an East Coast problem.
It kind of is.
All right, anything else? It's getting a little bit late here on the right coast.
I'll see. Thank you so much, Doug.
Doug,
Thanks, Doug.
one quick question. As someone who's about to be a 6 in 5 land.
My condolences.
Yeah, well, I'm closer to Europe than you are. Any pitfalls to avoid, any things to watch out for? I know Randy's a 5 in 1 land. What do I need to avoid?
I don't know, scorpions and
Scorpions.
hot weather. I don't know.
Snakes.
No.
Guys with guns.
Moccasins and rattlesnakes.
Hurricanes and switching power supplies.
I don't think there's anything for you to avoid, but guys who work you ought to be watching their log to make sure they don't put you in zone 3 instead of zone 4 where you are.
You might want to ask AD1C to add you to the CTY file.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and 800 is always, he's on from Louisiana all the time.
Yep.
Going to be loud.
About 200 miles away. Yep.
Yeah, I think, Jack, these days it's mainly a state QSO party kind of thing where the slash makes a difference.
I'm on from New Hampshire all the time, and I never put on a /1.
Okay, well, let me let Doug go and say thank you, and really appreciate your staying up so late. We got started a little later than I had originally planned, so thanks for your patience. And
thanks, Doug.
Also, Randy, thanks for showing up and listening in on this one. And thanks to Jim and Bob and Andy. So with that, the